thank you again for taking time this afternoon. We appreciate it. And we were talking earlier, you've been on this job for 15 years, and some would say perhaps it's time to retire. Why are you choosing to run once again for Sheriff of Santa Barbara County?
Well, I'm choosing primarily, Beth, because I really believe that in these changing and uncertain times that it's important for the Sheriff's Office to have an executive leader who is someone who's seasoned, who has been through a variety of different challenges and issues, and to be able to guide and lead the organization into through the next 4 years. I think there's a very good chance that we're going to see some major issues and challenges come to us, both as a nation, perhaps globally. The economy is in very uncertain condition right now, and I think all of that is a call for stability and a need for somebody who has been around the block and who knows how to take care of the organization, and who will represent the organization and will represent our community as well throughout the state and throughout the nation through my affiliation with a national organization, the Major County Sheriffs of America, that I'm the vice president for. So that's the primary reason. The selfish reason, or the secondary reason, is I love my job. I love what I do. I look forward to coming to work each and every day. I'm blessed to work with some of the finest people in the world, the men and women of the Sheriff's Office, and I'm so proud of them and what they do. And I have no aspirations to run for any higher office. I am not interested in retirement at this point. I just think that the time and the calling is there for me to stay and do what I'm doing.
Right now, what would you say are the two primary key strengths of the Santa Barbara County Sheriff's Department?
I think the strengths that we have, the number one strength, are our people. The most valuable resource in any organization, and it's a constant changing of training and policies and equipment and technology. It all becomes obsolete, right? But if you select and train the right people, those people, not only do they, through their career, guide and serve in such a way that they bring credit to the organization, but they also train and act as the mentors for those that come behind them. And it's like compound interest in the bank. It's something that is prospective. So definitely the people are the number one thing. And the second thing, I think, is what those people do, the service that they provide. We protect people. We do a lot of individual things. We're very good at dealing with tactical situations, disasters, everything. But I think the track record, the reputation that the Sheriff's Office has of treating people the right way is really important. And I think that's because we have developed a culture where that's expected, not just by me as the sheriff, but by everybody in the organization. And I like to say that when I hire and bring on and swear in a new sheriff's deputy or custody deputy or an employee, I always admonish them, a civilian employee, I always admonish them to that my expectation and advice to them is that they follow the golden rule of good law enforcement and corrections. And that is that they treat people as they would want themselves or a member of their family to be treated. And to get a bellwether on that, they need to ask themselves after each and every encounter that they have with someone, whether that person is a member of the public, whether that person is a colleague at work, or whether that person is an inmate in our jail system, ask themselves, would I honestly feel, if I was that person, that I had been treated professionally, courteously, and fairly? And if the answer to that question is yes, then they're doing a good job. But I tell them, if the answer to that question is no, then you need to self-reflect and see what was missing during that encounter and make it right the next time. And I think the people and what they do are the two big strengths of the Sheriff's Office.
On the flip side, the two key weaknesses currently right now with the department.
I think that our weaknesses as an organization are not profound. They're there. We're human beings. We're an organization made up of human beings. We can always improve. We're always in a quest for excellence. I would say that we're struggling just like every other law enforcement and corrections agency in the nation to recruit a sufficient number of people right now. We've gone through a very tough time with the national conversation about law enforcement and the criticisms, the protests, and some of the pushback that has been particularly virulent in some other communities, not here so much. But even so, that national effect has had an impact on the number of young people wanting a career in law enforcement or corrections. So we have to do everything we can do to go out there and not just wait for people to come to us as we did in the old days. We need to go out there and recruit. So I think we need to continuously, we've made some great improvements, but we need to continuously work to improve our recruitment efforts and to do things that are a little outside the box and spread our net further and wider to try to get good people for our organization. I think the second thing would be that we need to do a better job of taking the information that we have at our disposal. We have some really powerful internal systems, computer systems, and doing a better job of analyzing all of the data that we have and using it in such a way that we can manage our operations and what we do. And we have a recently funded and people hired for our data unit, and we're in the process now of really developing ways to automate much of what we used to have to do by hand and was an antiquated system. But we're on the cutting edge and just about to, on the cusp of being able to do on a more regular basis what we've done before at great human resource expense, gathering this information and so forth. And so it'll become more routine and more regular, and I think will make us a more effective and efficient organization.
To what extent did the back-to-back disasters, the Thomas Fire, the Montecito mud flow, impact your decision to run, or was it something else that sparked your decision?
No, I mean, I think that we've had our share of disasters that have been more than just those two. We've had, in addition to that, we've had the Conception dive boat fire that was with, 34 lives lost, was the largest single loss of life in any disaster that we've had in Santa Barbara County's history. And then we've, of course, had the COVID pandemic, which has had a huge impact on the sheriff's office, and particularly our custody branch in our jails. And so there's been some major challenges that have come, but I think, and I think we've handled those situations well. I think I'm very proud of the response that the men and women of the sheriff's office have had, to those challenges. And I feel very comfortable leading the men and women, and very comfortable knowing that whatever gets thrown at us, we will be able to resolve, and we will be able to handle and protect our community. But I think that there are other things at play that in the we have a lot of factors that are kind of beyond our local control that are occurring, and the economy and the inflation and the potential for a downturn in the economy coming up. We're still haven't completely recovered from the Great Recession. I mean, we are still depleted in terms of our staffing in the sheriff's office significantly from where we were in 2007. We're down 80 general fund positions from where we were at the height. And that's if you don't count the Northern Branch Jail, which was added in a different function. So those 80 positions, we're still not covering and filling a crime prevention unit, our resources and development unit, other positions within investigations and support positions from throughout the organization. We're still missing those positions. They're still not there. And so we're dealing with those challenges, and I think there's potentially more challenges coming in the future. So I think we have to, as an organization, have somebody to lead it through these challenging current times, as well as the potential for even further challenges down the road.
What is your approach to dealing with and curbing the use of illegal drugs, particularly opioids and fentanyl in the county?
we have a kind of a perfect storm situation right now with illicit drugs. We have more illicit drugs in our community and available to people now than we've ever had in modern times. And at the same time, we have fewer resources to be able to address them from an enforcement side. In addition to that, we have the challenge of legal cannabis and the regulation of the legal cannabis industry and the need to go after the outlaw cannabis industry that is unfairly competing with the legal cannabis industry. So it's all of these things have come together at this time, and we have about half the narcotics investigative resources that we had as an organization, and as a county we have even less than that. Some law enforcement agencies in our county have no narcotic enforcement resources currently. And we used to, in addition to the Sheriff's Office having 2 narcotic enforcement teams, Santa Barbara Police Department having a team, and the Lompoc and Santa Maria Police Departments having sort of combined drug and gang teams. We now have a situation where really the only teams that we have is a single team from the Sheriff's Office that now covers both North and South County, and the team for the Santa Barbara Police Department. We also had in the old days a regional narcotics enforcement team called SaberNet, Santa Barbara Regional Narcotic Enforcement Team. And that was a joint regional approach that we used, and each department would put one person into that position, and the State Department of Justice, the Bureau of Narcotic Enforcement, would provide us with a supervisor for that position. Well, the State Department of Justice no longer has a Bureau of Narcotic Enforcement. It's been eliminated. And so we have no regional team anymore. We have all of the agencies in the county challenged in terms of staffing levels. And so we have this terrible problem of really having trouble from the enforcement side or the supply side of the drug problem, and particularly the opioid problem, as you mentioned. At the same time, we have a tremendous number of resources in our county for the treatment of and offering people who have addiction problems treatment to be able to try to conquer those addictions. But what we don't have is kind of a cohesive plan that is a countywide plan that has many different disciplines bought into it. And it's for that reason that I've introduced something called Project Opioid. And it's not a new concept. It's a concept that I've taken and borrowed from some sheriff's office in particular that started it in Florida, the Seminole County Sheriff's Office. And basically it's a plan where you bring together the leaders in our communities, local government, law enforcement, the medical community, the education community, the faith-based community, the treatment community, and also bring in the business and the corporate community as well, and bring leaders together to learn about the problem and to then educate the community about the problem and to share resources and vision and to be able to provide a roadmap on how we can deal with both the supply and the demand side. So law enforcement is working now to try to come up with some creative things that we can do with our existing resources, how we can partner further with the federal government, with the Drug Enforcement Administration to help us. Oftentimes drug dealers have illegal firearms. We have a great relationship with the Alcohol, Tobacco, and Firearms and Explosives division, and so we are really working hard to try to put together a renewed regional approach to try to address this issue from the enforcement side, but also make sure that the regulation side, which has been actually very good for opioids, and the challenge is really with cannabis right now in terms of having sufficient resources to do that, but also to have this public education campaign, particularly about the drug fentanyl. Fentanyl is a drug that is killing people at an excessive rate in our communities, a tragic and disturbing rate. Last year we had 133 people that died of overdose deaths in Santa Barbara County. Almost 70% of those had some connection with fentanyl, either exclusively or as a polydrug overdose. And That's just unacceptable. You think about those numbers, 133. I mentioned earlier that we'd lost 34 people in the Conception dive boat fire. That was the worst disaster we've ever had, single disaster. Well, if you took a look and treated overdoses as a disaster, it's more than, it's 4 times that many almost. So the reality is we need to say enough is enough. We have to do something better. And it will be very soon that we'll be announcing some things about Project Opioid, getting the message out to the community about the dangers of fentanyl, better educating the community, working with educators and the schools to make sure that young people are educated about it. But this is a problem. It's a nationwide problem. It's not just exclusive to us. Last year, 107,000 people died of overdose death in the United States. And you think about that for a moment, that's almost twice as many people as we lost in the entire Vietnam War. Over 10 years of U.S. involvement in Vietnam, we lost 58,000 people. And here in 1 year in our nation, we've lost 107,000 people. And it struck me as we have to do something about this. We cannot allow this to stand the way it is. And so I'm very excited about Project Opioid. We've had a great response, great turnout from significant leaders from all of the disciplines that I've talked about. And so we're looking forward to launching that very shortly.
What needs to be done realistically to tamp down the local homeless crisis, the health crisis as well, mental health crisis?
Sure. Homelessness is a major challenge that we have here in Santa Barbara County. We are an area that if you're going to be homeless, Santa Barbara County is a good place to be homeless. It's a temperate climate. It's a community that cares about people. There's a lot of resources here. Unfortunately, with homelessness, we oftentimes see co-occurring mental illness and or substance abuse, and it makes it that much harder to deal with it and to treat it. We've had a lot of resources, financial resources from the federal and state government lately come to our community. With the key part that's needed is some housing alternatives, but it's also important to remember that many people who are homeless do not avail themselves or want to avail themselves necessarily of services. If they're addicted to drugs and they're using drugs, they don't want to stop that oftentimes. And it's important that we have ways to interact with people who are homeless and to try to get them into treatment. Their homelessness is not going to be addressed until their underlying drug addiction is addressed, if that's what their problem is. If they have a mental illness, their homelessness is probably not going to be addressed until their mental illness is addressed. So it's important that we get as much reach as we can with people in the homeless communities and get them availed of the services that we have here and try to get them on a road where they can get into sustainable housing and where they can actually, in many instances, have a treatment program for either their mental illness or substance abuse that can get them to where they can have a job and they can function well in the community. And actually, housing, as I say, is a key element of that. Mental illness itself, as you know, has been at the forefront of what I am trying to accomplish in terms of keeping mentally ill people out of the criminal justice system. For 12 years, I've been commissioner in the state's Mental Health Services Oversight and Accountability Commission. It's a governor's appointed position. I was appointed by Governor Arnold Schwarzenegger. I was reappointed by Governor Jerry Brown. And I'm very pleased that I'm now the senior member of that body and have seen some wonderful things done as a result of the state's Mental Health Services Act, some incredible programs in early intervention and prevention and treatment of people with serious mental illness. And I've particularly tried to champion ways to keep the mentally ill out of the criminal justice system. I chaired a committee that studied this problem for the better part of a year. We went all across the nation, looked at model programs. We wrote up a report called Together We Can, under the notion that no single agency has the resources that can solve a problem like this. It's too big for us, it's too costly, it's too in its scope. It's just it's too troublesome for one agency to do it. But the belief is, and other communities are proving this, and we're proving it in certain ways, that together we can pool our resources, we can combine our budgets, we can combine staffing and approaches, and we can address the problem. And we've seen through our co-response program, a collaborative program with behavioral wellness, our department of our community's mental health department, we have seen a tremendous change in how we address issues of people in crisis that are mentally ill. We send a trained team of a deputy sheriff and a clinician, and the proof is in the pudding with the tremendously low number of arrests and incarcerations that are made in those instances. Give you an example of that. In the first year that we had our first team up and running, there were about 3,400 and some odd calls, I believe. About 1,600 of those calls were handled by the CIT1, the mental health team. Of those 1,600 plus calls that they handled, only 11 resulted in arrest and incarceration in the jail. So it's very clear that they have become very adept at finding alternatives, community-based treatment, other approaches to dealing with this problem. So I'm very proud of the work that we've done as a sheriff's office in that regard.
The next issue has to do with hiring challenges. How do you bring in qualified employees to oversee both jails and local communities as well?
Well, as I mentioned earlier, hiring is a challenge in this environment, but the good news is that although it's getting harder for us to find large numbers of employees or potential employees applying all at once, we're having to sort through a lot of smaller groups of people, and we're still able to find and are still hiring and bringing on some exceptional people into the organization, into our profession. And there are still many people out there in younger generations that want to give back, and they want to have something that's going to reward, they find personally rewarding in addition to providing a paycheck. And that's the difference between this profession and many others, is that this is a profession that provides not just financial benefits and other benefits, healthcare insurance and things like that to people that are in it, but it provides a real sense of satisfaction when you can go home at the end of your day knowing that you made a difference. Sometimes that's in a small way, sometimes it's in a very big way, but you make a difference every day that you're out there interfacing with, serving, and protecting the people of our community. And we are really working on ways to try to spread the message, to plant the seeds with young people. Through, I'm going to be going to a high school class on Friday to talk to a high school class about the law enforcement profession. We have an Explorer program, which young people can get into and learn firsthand what it's like to be in law enforcement. And it has proven to be a recruitment tool for us. Many of the young people who've gone into the Explorers have actually come on board with our organization as full-time employees. In addition to that, we look to we've had great success of many people getting out of the military, people who are discharged from the Air Force or the Space Force now at Vandenberg Air Force Base, and like the area, and they want to stay here. And they're people who have had tremendous training in our military, and in getting them interested in coming. And so we're looking at not just there, but also Navy bases to our south and other areas, and really kind of looking to be able to spread that net far and wide, as I say, to look for people who are interested in it, and getting across to them that this is a noble profession, that you can't, in my estimation, do anything that is nobler than to protect and serve your community. And we have constant examples of how people's lives are saved, how people's lives are changed as a result of what the Sheriff's Office has done for them. And it makes me exceptionally proud, and I know that it makes all of our people very proud to be a part of an organization that does that.
Do you feel that Santa Barbara County has sufficient community oversight with regards to the Sheriff's Department?
I do. I feel that in the wake of the George Floyd tragedy, which I was very disturbed by and which I spoke out against, and it was very clear that that was an aberration in terms of how law enforcement should operate. In the wake of that, though, there was kind of the pendulum just swang, I think, too far the other way, where there were protests, there was in some cases violence, there was a tremendous amount of rhetoric that was being hurled at law enforcement, at the law enforcement profession, that law enforcement was inherently racist, that it was overwhelmingly brutal, that it was hopelessly broken, and that it needed to be reimagined and we needed something in its place. And there were actually places where people were calling for the abolishment of the police, not just the defunding of the police, the abolishment of the police. And that was such a misguided notion to call for either the defunding or the abolishment of the police. And the reality is, I don't believe it's hopelessly broken, and I think that Santa Barbara County law enforcement and the Santa Barbara Sheriff's Office in particular is a shining example of a law enforcement agency that gets it right, that has the trust and confidence of the people. There's this notion, it's election time and it's political at this point, and there's allegations of, well, we need to rebuild trust with the community. I don't think we need to rebuild any trust at all with our community. I think our community trusts and respects the Sheriff's Office and the service that we provide to them. And I think it's a mutual arrangement. I think that we respect and trust our community as well. There are currently a variety of different mechanisms that oversee what we do. We don't operate doing anything that we want to, and the reality is we have a civil grand jury that oversees what we do and reports on it often, and oftentimes is critical, and we oftentimes pay attention to what they're saying, and as a result of that make some changes in what we do. We have the state attorney general has the ability to investigate and oversee what we do, and oftentimes does. The governor actually is, by Constitution, has an authority over sheriffs in the state. But I think the ultimate oversight are the people of Santa Barbara County, because the sheriff, me in particular, doesn't have a job every 4 years if the people don't believe that what we're doing is to their satisfaction and their approval, and that they feel that we are achieving what we need to achieve and serving them and meeting their needs as well. And I think that that's very apparent in our community, that this organization in particular does just that. We are not apart from the community. We are a part of this community. We serve this community, and that is our mission, to uphold the constitutions and to serve the people of this great county.
And finally, last two, your number one goal if re-elected Sheriff of Santa Barbara County.
Well, I've talked about a lot of things that, enhancing mental health programs and keeping mentally ill people out of jail. We didn't talk much about rehabilitation, but that's certainly a big part of what I do. I believe in holding people accountable for wrongdoing, but I also believe in second chances, and I believe that we have to give people a second chance to atone for what they've done, to learn, to get the tools to live a better life and come out and be a productive member of the community instead of a destructive member of the community. And we've got wonderful examples of that in the new Northern Branch Jail. That is something, again, I'm very proud of, that was a campaign promise that I delivered on. Is here, and it's designed in such a way that it incorporates rehabilitation and reentry to the community to its very core, from the philosophy of how we operate it to what we offer to inmates in terms of education and other programming. But I think the number one goal that I want to do is continue to make sure that the people of this great county are protected properly through the right balance of having the right number and the right number of sheriff's deputies and custody deputies, but also having sheriff's deputies and custody deputies and support staff who are trained and equipped properly to be able to provide those services. And that would be the number one issue. And again, we need to balance that against rehabilitation, proper reentry, all of which is geared towards reducing recidivism, and then tie that into doing whatever we can do to stop people from becoming addicted to drugs and being attracted to drugs as an escape, to address mental health issues in early intervention wherever possible. And all of that combined is kind of a holistic approach to how we would do our policing and the service that we would provide to the county.
Okay. Sheriff Bill Brown, thank you on behalf of all of our viewers.
Thank you
Truly
for
taking time.
Well, thank you for the opportunity to be there, and I'd like to just remind the viewers to please go to my website, www.billbrown4sheriff.com. I've been endorsed by over 1,000 people for re-election. I encourage you to go to my website. I encourage you to go to my opponent's website and compare the issues, compare what we've said on there, what we've done, and what we say that we would do, and compare the endorsements and who's supporting who in this election. So thank you for the opportunity, and to the community, thank you for the opportunity that you and the privilege that you've provided to me to be the sheriff. I'm honored to be your sheriff, and I ask once again for your support and for your vote on or before June the 7th. Thank you.